In a follow-up now, this week we told you that the city of Peoria voted to ban camping in public spaces and issue fines and even jail time for repeat offenders. And now this decision is already getting backlash. In an email, the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, the Peoria chapter of the ACLU of Illinois, and the ACLU of Illinois voiced their displeasures with the Peoria City Council, which voted 6-5 to implement the ban to regulate and curb homeless encampments. Now, their statement reads in part, the stiff fines and possible jail time will be punitive for those in Peoria who already struggle to survive financially. This ordinance does nothing to address the plight of the unhoused. And you can read the full statement right now on our website, ciproud.com.
So even if you look at the map, Peoria, Illinois, urban center, like so many areas in Illinois, big cities are blue, 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 because, just keep voting blue and eventually it'll work out. But that's where all the shenanigans happen, right? Homelessness, crime, drugs, overdoses, all that good stuff. That's in the downtown core because those are typically democratically run areas. Outside, you got some red. I mean, there's some real red in Chicago. But even in Peoria that bleeds blue, they have gotten tired of the homeless situation. And now, so they're stuck with it, right? They're stuck with it because these are people. They're not livestock you can just put down. Bullet in the head. And we won't have to feed that cow. It just doesn't work like that. These are people. So you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to do something with them. And what they've come up with was, well, let's threaten to incarcerate them for sleeping on public land. We can't have them in our parks. And that's the big argument in Seattle. Same exact thing. Same in Portland. Same in LA. Hey, they've taken over our parks. What are we going to do? Well, let's incarcerate them. That'll show them. You got a bunch of people that are, number one, drugged out, right? Number two, they're mentally ill. I've told you guys this a million times, and if you're getting bored, I get it. I am too. But what I'm talking about today is even though you've got these Democrat, governances that are, have a lot of misguided compassion, because that's the only way you can come up with, just go ahead and sleep on the sidewalk, sleep wherever, just sleep wherever the F you want. It'll be great. Do all your drugs. It'll be great. Well, love ya. Well, now we're coming to, oh no, we don't want this anymore. So yeah, we're going to have to either take you to treatment or jail. Which one do you pick? And these people are so out of their mind most of the time. They can't be heldable for their own actions. You've allowed them to just go wacky on the drugs. We don't have enough mental health care facilities, certainly don't have enough treatment. And these people don't want to go to either. So you're kind of stuck. So the jail system becomes kind of the de facto of where these people end up. And they should not be in jail because they are whacked out of their gourd with mental illness, drugs, and or a combination of the two. So ACLU, why does the ACLU even exist? You know what I mean? They're continuously on the wrong side of the equation. And the Chicago-based groups have blasted the city as it enacted a ban on camping in public spaces. And that is exactly what Portland has done. All of these cities are going to some kind of ban, some kind of prohibition of this. California as a state, huge example of this. You've got Gruesome Newsom just basically saying, hey, you need to clean up your individual cities. And I need to see some GD action right now because I'm going to be running for president. And if the state of California continues to look like this, F me, because I am not getting elected. As he buys a $9.1 million home. You can't make this stuff up. Literally, you cannot make this stuff up. And all I'm doing is reading the news. I'm not bringing these news stories out of thin air. Hey, let's see what I can come up with, and I'll spit that out on the YouTube, and nobody will fact check me. I am literally reading the news. In an email, the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, how's that working out? Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness. The Peoria chapter, the ACLU of Illinois, and the ACLU of Illinois ripped on Peoria City Council, which voted 6-5. Hey, you know what? You got to push back on this homeless stuff. You got to push back. You got to set some boundaries. It's like a relative that's on drugs. You got to have some boundaries there, right? Some tough love. But, you know, these other activist type groups, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. So here's their statement. It's disappointing and outright sad. No, what's disappointing and outright sad is when people are dying on your sidewalks all day long because of your misguided compassion. Housing first, yeah, that doesn't work. Harm reduction, all harm, no reduction. You're out of your minds if you think that's actually the answer. Disappointing and outright sad to see that a slim majority of Peoria City Council members have embraced the myth that complex issues of homelessness can be addressed through the criminal legal system. I don't think anybody is thinking that. They are just thinking, hey, we'd like to have our children. We'd like to be able to play with our children in the park without them, you know, picking up a hypodermic needle laced with some fentanyl and maybe some heroin. I don't think that's a huge ask. We want to have our children play in the park and not have to step on human feces because somebody's all hopped up on meth and they couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. Yeah, that's a thing. It's why San Francisco has a poop emoji map, right? It's a thing. You just got to take a dump. You just got to go. Wherever you are, and then poop emoji map. And then you zoom in on the poop emoji and you see a picture of the human feces. Yeah, Peoria is saying, we don't want that in our community. Huh. Weird. Yeah, I can't imagine why not. Because we go back to, you know, the activists saying, well, here's what they'll say. This approach will not work. It will only exacerbate the challenges faced by those who are unhoused in Peoria. This approach will not work. Same thing in California. You know, Grissom Newsom buying his $9.1 million home, but also telling individual cities, you got to get your act in gear and clean this stuff up. This is terrible. It's horrible. I'm never going to get elected. And it's not going to work because you can't criminalize this and have these people go away. Just because you've criminalized it and you give them essentially a speeding ticket or a parking ticket, it doesn't change their situation, which is they're mentally ill and they're on drugs or maybe both. Doesn't change that at all. What it does is just exacerbate the problem and make it worse because now you've got jails that have already been emptied out. Well, now you're going to fill them back up. I don't think so. Plus, nobody's going to incarcerate these people. They're just not. Judges aren't going to do it. Prosecutors aren't going to do it. They're going to go, I've got a citation for vagrancy in a public space. No. The stiff fines and possible jail time. Stiff fines mean nothing to these folks. They could give a rat's ass less. Seriously, they could not care. So you can't fine them. You can't threaten to jail them. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Possible jail time will be punitive for those in Peoria who already struggle to survive financially. Yeah, they're not paying any fines. Yeah, and they're probably not going to jail. So you're right back to square one. Right back to square one. This ordinance does nothing to address the plight of the unhoused. Perhaps the most unsettling reality is that Peoria City Council, while spending several weeks considering this measure, have not done anything serious to address the complex problem of homelessness because it's such a massive issue and it's going to require so much money. And everybody's got a budget shortage right now, typically, right? Not everybody, but a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of entities do. This should be a lesson to other communities around the state who think that punishment and fines are the answer to homelessness or other complex issues. No, they are not an answer, but they are a pushback on this being the norm. Hey, it's okay to just take a dump in the park and set up your camp wherever and just dump your garbage all over, do your drugs, chase people around with swords, bring the prostitutes in for a quickie, and girls that need drugs, they're going to be your prostitutes. So, you just bring them in and maybe a little human trafficking, maybe some sex trafficking in there. I mean, stolen goods, purchase of stolen goods, drugs, you name it, guns, violence. Peoria is saying no to that. They're saying, we're drawing the line. We're making this stuff illegal. I'm okay with that. Does it solve anything? No, not really. But it's a line in the sand. And you got to start having some of those lines in the sand. Otherwise, you end up like Seattle. Otherwise, you end up like Portland. Otherwise, you end up like LA. Yeah, in mass scale. And those cities are trying to figure out what to do as well, because you've got lots of people that didn't start off in King County that are now in King County, and the world's the oyster. They're in Freeattle. Everything's free. Everything but the drugs. And you just sell the crack pipes to get money for the drugs. It's what they're doing. This should be a lesson to other communities around the state who think that punishment and fines are the answer to homelessness or other complex issues. I don't think it's an answer, but again, it's a pushback. It's a deterrent. Yeah, can't sleep there. They're going to throw us in jail again. All right. The time for unserious political approaches is over. What? Okay. Anyway, Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, the weather, and stand ready to roll up our sleeves. Well, why are you ready now? Why haven't you been doing that before and fixing the problem if you can? Roll up our sleeves with the community to do the hard work of addressing a crisis. You're not doing any hard work. You're just talking. That's all you do. No action, talk, yeah, yada, yada. Peoria has missed that opportunity. No, you could still have that opportunity. You can still roll up your sleeves and you can still get in there and do all the hard work. It's just that Peoria has set a limit, just like a family member with drugs. Hey, you know what? Tough love says that you can't do that. We are no longer acceptant of that behavior. So, you know, whether or not you want to believe that housing is right, housing first works, housing first being the theory, and it's believed by a lot of left-wingers that just basically have their head up their ass from the standpoint, if you just give them housing, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to stop doing the heroin, they're going to stop doing the fetty, and they're going to get on their pathway to being a normal, tax-paying, contributing member of society again. And I come from the background of, you know, you got to address the root cause there, which is they're whacked out of their GD minds on drugs. So what are you going to do there? Well, we're just going to give them housing and it should be fine. How's that working out for you? How's that working out for you? What do I hear? I hear crickets. You know why? Because that doesn't work either. You got to address the problem. You can't have people who are messed up on drugs and messed up in the head anyway. They probably started messed up in the head from their childhood, some kind of childhood trauma. And they're just trying to get high to forget about all that, to kill the pain, because they've had a whole bunch of other things go on in their life that just went sideways as well. But you can't, you can't treat these people like cattle. They're human beings. And that is the real rub, because these people need a ton of help. And we just don't have the resources to do it. We've talked ourselves out of, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Oh, geez, the doctors and the nurses, they're all having sex with the psychiatric patients. They're all abusing them. This is terrible. Close them all down. And did some of that occur? Absolutely. Does it still occur today? Absolutely. It's kind of just human nature. This notion that everybody's nice to each other, that doesn't work. That's not a thing. It's just not a thing. So you got to deal with it as best you can. Hey, that's illegal. You're going to jail. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we close down all the institutions. But that's what we did on a bilateral. I mean, these were both parties that did this. No, but we kind of have mental institutions. They're very, very, very abusive. Well, now those folks are either in jail or they're running around in the streets on drugs, because we see it in Seattle. Good example of that is a few weeks ago, a mentally deranged 9-time convict with 30 misdemeanor convictions who's homeless, whacked out of his mind on drugs, grabs a kitchen knife, stabs 10 people in 38 hours in Seattle. Yeah. So if you want to enjoy more content like that, you can go to reasonabletv.com, and for $3.99 a month, $3.99 a month, I talk about that stuff. Como News, Jeremy Harris talks about Seattle mass stabbing, and it was so violent that I had to run it on our private channel because it's a no-go on the YouTube because it was too graphic. Even with Jeremy's blurt outs, I did not feel comfortable running it. I didn't want to get another strike, so I'm going to run it there. So that's where the good stuff is. That's where the PG-13, let's be honest, R-rated. Is it ever X-rated? Oh, I've got an X-rated one coming up. these two people in prison. The male impregnates the female, and they never have a conjugal visit. How does that work out? Reasonable TV. Check it out. I'm recording it today. I'm going to record that one next. That's a wild one. Yep. She's having a baby, and she artificially inseminated herself in prison. Yeah. Tasty. All right. That's it for me on this one. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Thanks for joining. See you then.